Jha, because I know Sanjay Jha is going to dwell extensively on the IMF numbers and IFF report, which raises questions on the statistics and the methodology. But Sanjay Jha, just for a moment, step back. Even if there is, say, a 1% deviation or even a 2% deviation, which of the big economies of the world are growing at even 6 or 7%? We're at 8.2% now, as per the official data.
Madhav, I'm glad you asked this question. Let me come to the point very, very quickly. Number one, the IMF's objections are extremely serious. They're very, very grave, Madhav. Let's not try and be casual about it. If the IMF, which is basically, or the World Bank, questions your methodology and says that your data is suspect or of very low quality, it makes our GDP in the eyes of the global world, including analysts and everyone, frankly, is talking about it, that India's GDP is inflated. Go back to what Arvind Subramaniam, who was the chief economic advisor to this government, publicly stated. And I am hearing these ridiculous defense by the right-wing ecosystem that India's GDP is calculated on the income method. Well, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's calculated on income method or expenditure method, the two have to be the same, because somebody's income is somebody's expenditure. Anyway, let me address the fundamental one. Mr. Basu, kindly let me finish. You can shake your head vigorously from left to right after I'm done. The second point that cannot be ignored, that if India's GDP was indeed booming, the direct impact of that would have been visible on jobs. And that is clearly not there. Number three, look at the GDP deflator. If you go by this government, India has literally no inflation. In fact, I would say that today the nominal GDP growth seems to be a better indicator than the real GDP growth, because the GDP deflator that they are using is questionable. I mean, IMF has pointed out, and Madhav, I have been telling you on your show that the way they calculate the GDP deflator needs to be disclosed. What is so secretive about it? You're using a wholesale price index that is anyway terribly suppressed. What is the component being used there? Because this can change the entire perception. And let me tell you something else. Please do not be thrilled with this GDP. India is not even 4 trillion economy today. China is 20. And remember, 10 years ago, India and China were meant to be the two people fighting it out.
Rajat Sethi.
America.
Rajat Sethi. Rajat Sethi, but Sanjay Jha, there's also the amount of time that it's taken China to reach where it has reached. But let me bring in Rajat Sethi now. Rajat Sethi, let's not believe this data. There's nothing much to be thrilled about. The methodology, as IMF points out, is extremely suspect. Therefore, India should not be thrilled about these numbers. Your response to Sanjay?
Everything about this government
is... Let me tell you viewers actually about what Professor Santosh was just saying. It was laughable to listen to him. He was saying that since the last year, the growth rate was 5.6%. So because of the low base effect, this year, the 8.2% seems a little on the higher side. Otherwise, it would have been lower. But let me take him back 1 year. By his very same logic, in quarter 2 of 2023-2024, the growth rate was 9.3%. By that same logic, one could have also argued that 5.6% is because of the previous year that is being talked about had a very high growth rate. So let us not make fool out of data. You know, a famous saying that goes around data is if you start beating a data, it will start speaking whatever you want to hear. So let us not go down that road. One thing is clear, this is an era where we are seeing unprecedented headwinds. All the economies are suffering, and especially emerging economies around the world have been suffering. There is a degree of nationalism which has kicked in the European countries, in the Western countries, including the US, and we all see what the tariff and all has done. There was a global gloom and doom that was projected for India. And India comes out shining with such strong numbers. And I'm speaking to several financial intermediaries and institutions. They say that all these small SME sectors that take loan from these intermediaries, nobody is defaulting. Even the export-oriented units are not defaulting. So clearly, our smart SME entrepreneurs have found ways to bypass the Trump regulations. Also keep in mind that Trump regulations tariffs do not apply for pharma sectors, does not apply for electronic sectors. So we've been able to, face the headwinds that were coming our way. And so kudos to the public and the smart.
No, but I have to ask one question. Sanjay Jha, let me assume for a moment that everything you're saying about the IMF and the quality of statistics, for sake of argument, is all correct. These are all valid concerns. But at the end of the day, why would Mr. Rahul Gandhi jump to, echo President Trump when he says India is a dead economy? Is this how a dead economy looks like to you or to anybody?
Madhav, let me answer. When you say a dead economy, there are two ways to interpret that. Literally, the answer is obviously no, because dead would mean 0% growth rate, right?
Well,
But
I'm very glad
literally
you
the
said
answer.
that.
Now, 1 minute, but let me qualify. I'm not done yet, Madhav. Dead basically means you're underperforming to your potential. And this is what Santosh Mehrotra, myself, and a whole lot of people who have been arguing. And Rahul Gandhi is right on the money. If you look at jobs, do you remember the senior statistician?
Okay, you made this point earlier as well. PK Basu respond to that. It's growth without jobs, and therefore it's not to the full potential of what India requires. Quick response, please. We have limited time.
And we have
Okay, I've just written a book called India Reborn, where I've pointed out that between 1700, in 1700, India's share of world GDP was 25%. When the British left India, India's share of world GDP had declined to 4.2%. By the time the Nehru-Gandhi family was done with India, in 1990, India's share of world GDP was 3%. So if you think about a dead economy, the economy was dead when the Gandhi-Nehru family were ruling this country.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Gentlemen, completely out of time. It's a very, very vexed issue. It's a very, very heated issue. But the fact is 8.2% growth has been achieved despite the effect of the US tariffs coming in. Of course, a lot of measures that the government has taken, from, in fact, the GST rates to tax rates, etc. A lot of measures that have been coming in over the past years. How much of an impact has that been in this particular quarter? How much impact will there be in coming quarters? All of that remains to be seen. Rajat Sethi, Dr. PK Basu, Sanjay Jha, as well as Dr. Santosh Mehrotra. To thank all of you for joining us on this discussion.